Hello and welcome to Paranormal in Pennsylvania.
where we discuss history and haunts.
Today's story is right here in Pittsburgh and features two of our favorite things, ghosts and beer. I'm Sarah.
And I'm David.
Let's get into it.
I like beer.
So today's episode features Church Brew Works, which is right here in Pittsburgh, as I mentioned. And I've been here a few times, and I never knew that it was haunted. Did you know it was haunted?
No.
So we did just take a team dinner there because we wanted to see what we could feel. And I had done the research, but I didn't tell you or Erica anything about it. What was your experience?
Well, we arrived at the site and we assessed the building. It was a church. We went in, had dinner, had some beer, but it was a really cool building. The architecture still shows a lot of, I would say, still very much like a church, but they added in like beer in certain locations.
Yeah.
So beer components. So for instance, like little cherubs were flying and they were holding steins of beer, which I found quite funny. And then they had the fermenters in the very back. It was
But
really
any
cool.
paranormal experiences?
No, I can't say so, truthfully. I primarily felt like it was a place where you had a lot of, like, there was a lot of good energy there.
Yeah, we talked a lot about temperature differentials. I know Erica also felt some like coldness and stuff. And at one point she was like, that flag is moving, but I think we chalked that up to the HVAC unit, if I'm right. Yeah, Erica shaking her head, yes. So we didn't experience anything. But it's allegedly really haunted.
Spooky.
Yeah, we'll start with the history, and it all comes from their website because they do lean into the history and the haunting. So in the 1800s, the land was used as a park primarily, and people used to frequent it to get fresh air. And I have fresh in quotation marks because we know Pittsburgh was a steel town. So take that with a grain of salt. In 1901, a parish purchased land and started construction on this church. And then this is a Catholic church, to clarify. It was a huge undertaking for the time, especially for this area. There were many stained glass windows and intricate hand-painted wood detailing within the church itself. The church also has a bell tower that's in the back of the church, and there was actually a copper time capsule placed in the cornerstone of the church in 1902 that contains various records of history of the land. So that's the church. But in 1915, a fire broke out and caused major damage, and that resulted in largely rebuilding the whole church. The church went strong through both world wars, various floods in Pittsburgh, the Depression, etc. But in 1993, it was put under an act of suppression and lay dormant. And an act of suppression, I guess, is the church tells you to stop practicing there.
Huh.
For various reasons. I don't know.
I do not know either.
I think it's like an official decree.
I'll believe it.
It lay dormant until 1996 when Sean Casey purchased the land and started modifying the church to construct Church Brew Works. In 1999, the Church Brew Works officially opened, and while it's a brewery, as you explained, the owners took great care to restore as much of the original church as possible, preserving the windows, paintings, woodworking, etc., and putting their own spin on it. So, to orient you in terms of the church, the rectory is now the kitchen. Brewery equipment is at the altar and in what used to be the schoolhouse. And the dining room is where people would sit, or the central part of the church. So for those that haven't been, when you get there, the hostess stand is actually in the middle of the aisle, like you would walk down if you were going to go find a pew to sit in. So that's the history. Now the ghost stuff. So there's a lot of reports from staff noticing things that were off. And there are reports of things like computers being unplugged at night. The staff will unplug a computer or a piece of machinery, but then in the morning it's plugged back in. Employees also reported hearing the sound of footsteps, talking, and even the sound of objects being dragged. And this primarily happened after everyone left and when they were closing. And I had a similar theory here to my theory in Iron Hill, that it's just because it was too loud. But the restaurant actually wasn't that loud when we were there.
No, And it actually had quite a good crowd for,
Yeah.
what was that, a Wednesday night?
Yeah. We only do Pip on Wednesdays. No, I'm kidding.
Uh,
Pip is a lifestyle. So I don't think that that's a valid reason that you wouldn't hear stuff. So it might be specifically targeting staff.
Maybe, but also, you mentioned computers being unplugged and such, so that might actually be in areas where normal patrons are not. So like, they didn't really discuss where these happenings are occurring.
I see. So you're saying we wouldn't have experienced it anyway.
Yeah, so it might be backed by the brewing equipment. It might be, just in areas that we don't get to go into. But also, I'm wondering, like, what is the cause of these hauntings? Did anybody die in the fire?
We'll get into it.
Oh.
There are also reports, which we definitely would have heard, of the sound of organ music playing.
Oh, no, that one's really cool.
Yeah, even though the organ no longer functions. So it's not like something accidentally hit it. It has to be, like, spectral organ music.
Right, because, like, a organ pipe, being hit, sure, can be explained. But the sound of the organ actually playing itself...
Yes.
That is harder to explain.
So there are a few resident ghosts. There have been multiple reports of seeing a young woman in a long white dress, and she's seen in the brewery's office, in the dining room, or standing at the altar. And she's known to stare at people for a bit before disappearing into mist.
Somebody left at the altar? Question mark. Long white dress, right? Wedding?
Yeah. Yeah. I was hoping to catch this one. I mean, we took a picture in front of the altar. It's posted on our Instagram if people want to go look. And I took a ton of other pictures just hoping to catch anything in them, but I unfortunately did not. The cook has reported that many spirits haunt the kitchen, with spirits regularly tugging on his jacket and moving his ingredients around. And he stated that when he goes into the basement, he feels a sense of darkness down there.
Basement, darkness, same thing.
Yeah. But it sounds like the ghosts in the kitchen are almost jesters.
Yeah, so when I hear, like, my ingredients have been moved around, I can think that being, like, people doing prep or something messing with him.
Right.
Like, that can be easily explained. The tugging, a little bit harder to pull off, like, tugging on somebody's jacket and then hiding.
Yeah, and especially in a professional kitchen.
Right, where, like, that just doesn't fly.
Yeah. So the brewery was featured on Ghost Hunters in 2022, and the owner and some staff are genuinely scared. So they called these investigators to try to get answers about who is haunting the building. So interviews reinforced previous reports of hauntings, but the cook expanded on why he hates the basement. He said that he saw a shadow figure that appeared to be solid, and he could hear it making footsteps as it walked. He felt that it was something unnatural. In the dining area, he heard a bang and regularly reports hearing organ music. He continued to walk with the team through the dining space and heard a knock on every table that he passed. The staff accountant also stated that they have paranormal experiences there, reporting that the chairs in the dining hall often move.
Oh, that's really spooky.
I know.
Do you think they have, like, cameras in there that have ever caught it, or probably not?
So that's something that I was thinking too, because if machines are being unplugged, I wonder if there's cameras on them.
Right, because, like, surely this place has security cameras of some sort.
It must. But they didn't say anything about that. So based on these tours, as is typical with these ghost hunter shows, they set up their night investigation based on the stories and the history. And they actually spent multiple days/nights investigating this place. It was quite an effort. So we'll break it down by the nights. On the first night, they captured voices in the schoolhouse. They also captured what sounds like pounding or heavy walking. They tracked a sound down a hallway and up a set of stairs. And similar to other podcast episodes that we've discussed, they did talk about ghosts not liking or understanding machines. And as they were walking, they were explaining to the ghosts what they had in their hands and what the machines did. So it's kind of a different approach than we've seen before, and I wonder if it makes a difference in how ghosts respond.
I mean, in theory, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Somebody who died in, like, I don't know, take your pick, even 100 years ago, the technology has advanced so far that it might seem like absolute magic to them.
Yeah. So I think that would probably only help. On the second night, they investigate a crawl space under the floor and they capture a voice saying Jesus. And when they hear Jesus, one investigator feels something blow into his ear.
That's spooky. Also,
It used to be a church.
Yeah, the blowing into the ear is kind of strange.
Yeah.
But unless it was trying to like whisper into their ear and whisper a little too hard.
Oh, that's a great idea. I didn't think about that. That's
Yeah.
a possibility for sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that, but, I guess.
So then they spend their days following up on the history of the place so that they can try to identify ghosts. So they do research and go to local libraries and identify that a woman named Maria Houston was murdered on site by her husband when the land was a park in the 1800s. When they call out to Maria, they hear banging in the stairwell. They get the feeling that something was there with them when they hear this banging. And they follow the banging up to the schoolhouse where they then hear a whistle, a bang, and a voice.
So do we think that that's one, Maria, and two, she's trapped now?
I think she could be.
I mean, that would make sense, but, how many times have we also run into where it is the case a person that died before a building was built is now haunting the building because they are trapped?
Yeah. And not even necessarily that they're trapped, just like in the building because of it being built, but just trapped in that area, perhaps, or tied to that area.
Yeah, I think tying to the area would make the most sense.
Make more sense, yeah. So they decide to set up a laser grid to try to catch the site of an apparition, and it also identifies temperature changes. So the goal with this is that if something touches the laser grid, 1, the computer will detect it. 2, you'll see the grid get distorted right before your eyes. And then 3, the temperature changes will be tracked.
So it's like a dots from Phasmophobia.
It is.
It's
like a dots.
Okay.
It's like a dots. I don't know what it's called.
Gotcha.
So they decide to target Maria, and they start to talk about Catholicism, which was an interesting choice to me since she was there before it was a church, but that's the take that they have. And as they start talking about Catholicism, the lasers pick up a figure moving towards them, and the temperature fluctuates back and forth from 70 to 52 degrees.
That's neat.
And with a fluctuation that significant, that has to be something paranormal.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here kind of wondering, why didn't you make me watch this with you again?
Well, because I don't want you to know the story before we talk about it on the podcast.
Oh, I see. Robbing me of good entertainment.
Guess what? The episode still exists.
This is true. We can totally watch it. It sounds very interesting. I'd like to watch it.
Yeah, I really like how they explain the technology, and they do try to debunk different things. So the fact that they present this as, evidence because of things like you can't explain an 18-degree deficit randomly occurring. And then when they stop talking to her, or before they talk to her, it just leveled out.
Interesting. So I think it'd be most likely that she was Catholic, but maybe not. I don't know. It almost sounds like potential malice or maybe excitement.
It could, well, or she could not be Catholic, so she could be mad that there's a Catholic church there. We'll never know.
Right.
Unless we look up her religion, which we could do. And they conclude this episode saying that there's something called a layered haunting, which I don't think we've had discussed before.
Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with the term.
And so what they suspect is going on is there's different ghosts from different areas or time periods, but they all act individually. So it's like the ghosts from the 1800s are layer 1. The ghosts from the fire are layer 2. And they exist in their own sphere. So they don't know that the other ghosts are there.
Sure. I mean, I believe that, but I guess in hearing this term, that applied to many of our previous podcasts as well.
Yeah. We just haven't had it identified as a layered haunting.
Right. Okay. That makes sense, but I would say like the majority of very long-standing buildings or locations are all layered hauntings then.
Yeah, absolutely. But what makes it layered is that the ghosts don't interact or know that the other ones are there. And I don't know how you would discern that.
Yeah, so that is actually my question now is how can you tell if a ghost is interacting? because most of the time it's over one apparition or spirit at a time, right? Or one happening that you can attribute to one ghost.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But they did confirm that nothing was evil or malicious there, which is good because it made the staff and the owner feel more comfortable. But they couldn't for certain confirm any of the ghosts, who they were. So we had like the shadow man and then the woman in white, and then the ghost that was they thought was Maria, who could also be the woman in white, but they never got conclusive evidence about who someone was.
And what about the basement?
They didn't have any interactions down there.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. It was mostly in the schoolhouse and then the dining area.
I mean, I almost gave up the schoolhouse because, normal ghosts, fine. Children ghosts, way scarier.
Yeah, you hear that like
the
slow.
The giggle of a child.
Yeah, or like the slow ring around the posy.
Yeah.
So we're here to answer the question. Will you go to this place of paranormal phenomena?
Definitely not.
I was going to say, we have been. So let's ask a different question. What would you recommend eating or drinking if you went to this place of paranormal phenomena?
The food is good. I don't know if their menu rotates or anything. But they do like some traditional German fare. But they also have other, like their other appetizers that are certainly not. So we had a smoked Gouda and spinach feta dip. That was quite good. Chorizo meatballs, those are also good.
Okay, we don't need
to. But anyways, yeah. So they have good food. Their beer is good too. I'm very partial to their brown ale.
And I would love if people in the Pittsburgh area go here, and one, I'm sure David would love to talk to you about the beer. But two, tell us if you've had a paranormal experience here. I, again, haven't and didn't, but it would be interesting to know, since we have so many friends in the area, if someone has.
Yeah, because it'd also be very interesting to hear, like, time of day and such when it happened.
Yeah, they only open at 4 p.m. though, but on weekdays. I don't know if they have brunch. So I would go again. I would love to have an experience there, especially since the ghost hunters confirmed that there's nothing evil or malicious there.
Well, they guessed.
That there's not.
You can't know for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in for this week's episode of Paranormal in Pennsylvania. Join us next Thursday to see what haunts we discuss next.